Hi everybody, this is Matthew Poes of Poes Acoustics, and Howard Skives, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, 4184, who had asked a question before, made a donation as well. I recently asked your advice on vertically stacking identical speakers. You strongly advised against it because of issues with comb filtering. I appreciate that advice. Then in this video you state that some comb filtering in a stereo setup is not an issue. It's normal, nothing to be concerned about. Would you be kind enough to expand upon that? Why is comb filtering an issue in certain scenarios but not others? I've taken on board how comb filtering manifests itself, but I can't grasp why that manifestation should occur when identical speakers are vertically stacked and precision aligned. You did suggest that I was a little aggressive in the way I asked my last question. Aggression is not my intent. I merely am hoping to expand my own understanding by tapping into the knowledge of someone with a more profound understanding than myself. Okay, so Howard, I think I'll try to talk about it maybe a little bit differently. When you take speakers and you stack them on top of each other, it's not just comb filtering. Everything becomes difficult. You mentioned that they're precision aligned. The problem is you can't really precision align them. The tweeters in the speaker are very often not placed in such a way where if you were to flip stack them, which is to flip one of the speakers upside down and put it so that the tweeters are near each other, that they're anywhere near close enough. The other thing is that the speaker crossovers weren't really designed for that. So when you've done that, to get the response to make sense would be very difficult. You'd end up with a lot of interference in the high frequencies that would be very difficult to overcome. I would say impossible to overcome. There may be exceptions to this where there are some speakers that would allow the tweeters to be placed close enough, but even then, typically when you do tweeter arrays, you don't do 2, you do 3, because there's just no easy way to make this work at the highest frequencies. In the end, I don't see why you would want to stack speakers like this instead of just buying a better speaker that's designed to do what you're trying to achieve. What would the point of stacking the speakers be? I understand what you're probably trying to do, which is to get more output and more dynamic range, because you would be getting basically 6 dB of extra output by adding the extra speakers and an extra amp. But the thing is, I think would be better off buying a better speaker in the first place than trying to do that. You're not saving the sound quality of the original speaker because by adding that extra speaker, you've changed the directivity characteristics of the speaker. The vertical directivity of that speaker now is not going to match what it was before. The frequency response is not going to match. Even if you use DSP to flatten it back out, you're correcting for problems that aren't correctable with EQ. That's one of the issues with comb filtering. And again, it's not just comb filtering. There's an interference pattern that shows up. So whenever there's multiple speakers playing, you always have comb filtering. So when I said comb filtering is not all that big a deal in certain scenarios, creating a speaker that creates comb filtering would be a very significant amount and would not be a good idea. And the sound quality would be greatly affected by that. But in a surround system or a stereo system, when images are panning between speakers, some comb filtering inevitably shows up as a result of just natural reflections in the room, which are very delayed, and the overlapping of the coherent sources that are not perfectly coherent at certain frequencies between speakers. But because these are dynamic movements, because there is delay associated with all that, the brain tends to do a pretty good job smoothing it out and filtering it out, which is different from the flip stack speakers comb filtering, which doesn't have that same delay and is not so easily filtered out. So hopefully that makes sense why I don't think that's a good idea. I don't know any professional in the industry that would recommend doing what you're saying. There are speakers that are designed to be stacked. They're mostly in the pro audio world, but they are starting to move into the home audio world. So Wisdom Audio, Alcon's Audio, and I'm sure there's some others, have developed line array speakers, which were intentionally designed so that their vertical coverage goes edge to edge on the speaker, and then you can take and stack them, and then you basically modify the vertical directivity without changing the characteristics and without introducing a significant amount of comb filtering. To be honest, the line arrays do have some comb filtering issues, and they have to be designed and optimized to minimize that because it can be a sound quality problem. So they're designed for that. Like the tweeters go end to end. If the tweeter was in the middle, stacking them would be a very bad idea. If the tweeter was at the top, but there was, let's say, 2 inches between the top of the tweeter and the very top of the enclosure, and then you had another identical one and you flipped it, and so you got 4 inches between them, and you probably in that scenario would have more like 6 inches center to center, you would have problems at the highest of frequencies, including some lobing issues. And so you wouldn't want to do that. There would be some DSP tricks you could do to probably make that work better, but the things you'd have to do would ultimately probably make the whole exercise worthless. So in my opinion, This is not a good idea. And as I said, I don't know any experts who would agree that it is a good idea and feel that it's something you should be doing. You'd be introducing problems without creating any great solutions beyond the dynamic range improvement. And as I said, I think there's better ways to handle the dynamic range issue. So Howard, I hope that's helpful. If you still are insistent on wanting to do it, you're welcome to. But if what you're trying to do is get me to agree that you should do this or that it's okay, I don't. I don't think it's a good idea, and I've explained my reasons why. So I hope that makes sense. Thanks.